Hello, my name is Paul Emerson. I'm an assistant state's attorney in Cass County. Today we're going to dig into one of the vital elements of a criminal jury trial, the opening statement. Opening statements are often underestimated, but this is your first real opportunity to frame your case, set the tone, and begin shaping how the jury will view the evidence. In a way, a strong opening statement is like setting the stage for a play. You're showing the jury the key characters, the important scenes, and the core evidence. If done right, by the time closing argument comes, the jury will most likely be in your camp because they've been following your story the whole time. Let's walk through the essential elements of an effective opening statement. What to include, how to say it, and how to present it.
Hi, my name is Nick Samuelson, and I'm a prosecutor at the Cass County State's Attorney's Office in Fargo. The first component to delivering an effective opening statement is to develop a theory and a theme. Everything starts here. Your opening statement should be built around the theory of the case, your explanation of what happened, why it happened, and who is responsible. Your theory should answer the big questions. What is this case really about? Why did this crime happen? And what will the jury see that proves the case beyond a reasonable doubt? And from that theory, develop a theme, a short, powerful phrase that ties your case together. Your theme should resonate with common sense and jury values. Keep it short, repeatable, and emotionally true. A strong theme gives your opening structure and your jury something to remember.
The second key point in an effective opening statement is to educate the jury. And to do this, you need to know your case inside and out. Your jury doesn't know anything about the case when they walk in. Your job is to teach them. You are the narrator. You're their guide through the facts. Imagine that you're explaining the case to someone who's never heard anything about it. Walk the jury through the people involved, the relationships, the key locations, and the events that led up to the crime. Make the case understandable. Make it relatable. Don't talk down to the jury, but don't assume that they know legalese. If you talk like you're teaching from a Crime for Dummies book, you're probably doing it right. If you seem unsure or confused, the jury is going to be confused too. But if you clearly know your case inside and out, the jury will trust you, and that trust goes a long ways.
The third component of an effective opening statement is to grab the jury's attention immediately. You only have a few seconds at the start of your opening to make an impression. Jurors are human, and if you don't grab their attention, you risk losing it. Start with something vivid, a hard-hitting fact, a dramatic moment, something that makes them lean forward. When you start with a moment, not a long background, the jury is more likely to remember what you say next because you brought them into the story.
The fourth key element in an effective opening statement is to use timelines. Timelines help tell a story. We're all wired to understand stories with a beginning, a middle, and an end. That's how juries process information. So structure your opening as a timeline. Start with what was happening in the hours, days, or weeks before the crime, then move to the events of the crime itself and what happened afterward. The investigation, the defendant's actions, the evidence that was recovered. Timelines help juries follow your case and give structure to the evidence that they'll hear. You can also reinforce the timeline visually if the court allows it by using slides, maps, or diagrams. When you walk the jury through the evidence step by step, it will stick with them.
The fifth thing to remember when preparing your opening statement is to address weaknesses in your case. You're not fooling anyone by ignoring your case's weak spots. In fact, if the defense brings them up before you do, it can make you look evasive or unprepared. That's why a strong prosecutor gets ahead of the problems. If you know there's a shaky witness, a credibility issue, or missing physical evidence, acknowledge it, and then explain why it doesn't change the truth. This shows the jurors that you're being honest. You respect them enough to tell them the full story. That builds credibility, and credibility wins trials.
The sixth component to an effective opening statement is to anticipate and dispel the defenses. Think ahead. What is the defense going to say? In most cases, the defense is predictable. It wasn't me. I didn't mean to, or I was just defending myself. You don't need to argue against the defense in opening, but you can plant the seeds that weaken it before the jury ever hears it. By calling out these claims early, you frame them as weak or even desperate before they even arrive.
The seventh thing to remember when preparing your opening statement is to be yourself, be relaxed, and make eye contact with the jurors. A robotic opening puts the jurors to sleep. A nervous opening loses confidence. A theatrical one loses trust. So just be yourself. Be human. Be professional, yes, but speak like a person who cares about justice, not just somebody reading a transcript. Practice enough so that you don't have to stare at your notes. Look at the jurors. Connect with them. Speak from knowledge, not memory. Jurors will respond to authenticity. If they trust you, they're more likely to believe your case.
The eighth key component in an effective opening statement is only to discuss admissible evidence and to tie it to your theory. In opening, we can't promise anything we can't prove, so only talk about evidence that you are sure will come in. But that doesn't mean you just list it. You need to explain how the evidence fits together. Show the jury how the pieces fit together and how they will all lead to one inevitable conclusion, that the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. This is your chance to lay the foundation for your case in a way that feels complete and compelling.
The final thing to remember about preparing your opening statement is that a compelling delivery matters, even without argument. We all know the rule. Opening is not argument, but that doesn't mean it has to be dull. You are absolutely allowed to use emotion, tone, pacing, and clarity to make your opening compelling. If you sound bored, the jury will be bored. If you sound unsure, the jury will be unsure. But if you speak with confidence, calm, and purpose, you draw them in. Remember, the most persuasive openings don't rely on volume or flash. They rely on credibility, clarity, and control. So to sum it up, start with a clear theory and a memorable theme. Educate the jury, know the facts, and teach them well. Use storytelling and structure to keep them engaged. Acknowledge weaknesses and anticipate defenses. Deliver your opening with authenticity and confidence. A great opening statement doesn't win your case all on its own, but it sets the stage for everything that follows. If you do it well, by the time the evidence is in, the jury will already see the case through your lens. Thank you for your time, and go win your trials.